They said her wedding day would be the happiest day of her life. But if anyone had walked into Ndidi's room that morning, they would have felt something was terribly wrong. The light was soft, the air still, yet it carried a strange weight like the silence right before a storm. And Ndidi, standing in front of her mirror in her wedding gown, looked more like a bride heading to her doom than a woman about to be joined in love. Ndidi lived in the town of Osha, a growing place between hills and rivers where everyone knew each other and stories traveled faster than the wind. Her house stood close to the marketplace, with orange trees outside and the sounds of morning traders filling the streets. She was the kind of girl people turned to stare at, tall, graceful, with warm brown skin that glowed under the sun, and deep, searching eyes. She had always been called beautiful, but it was the quiet way she carried herself that made people remember her. She lived with her mother, Ebel, and her younger sister Chanello. Their father had died when Ndidi was a child, and since then, her mother had worked hard to raise her daughters with strength and love. The three of them shared everything: meals, secrets, laughter, and sometimes silence. Ndidi worked at a local tailoring shop. She was known for her delicate stitching and the magical way she made fabric fall perfectly on the body. Brides came from far-off villages just to have her design their gowns. People often said, "Ndidi has golden fingers." But in truth, her hands were not golden. They had learned to hide pain. She met Omik 2 years ago during the Festival of Lights in Oturu, a nearby village. He was tall, with smooth skin and a confident smile. He spoke with the voice of someone who had command, and when he laughed, everyone wanted to join in. He was the kind of man who filled every room he entered. He had come from a wealthy family in Aba, a town known for its powerful elders and proud traditions. His father owned many shops, and Omik was expected to take over the family business one day. He drove a shiny black car, wore well-ironed clothes, and always smelled of expensive perfume. He made Ndidi feel like she was living inside one of the love stories she used to sew into wedding dresses. But even the finest perfume cannot hide the smell of rot for long. The first time he hit her, they had been dating for 6 months. It was a small slap, quick, like lightning. She had joked about one of his female friends calling too often, and his hand had met her cheek before her words even ended. She stood there, stunned, hand pressed to her face, mouth open in disbelief. "Why would you say such a thing?" Omik asked, his voice shaking as if she had done something wrong. "You know I love you. I don't joke about other men. Don't joke about other women." That night, she had packed her bag. But before she could leave, he fell to his knees. He cried. He begged. He called her his moon, his breath, his everything. He said it would never happen again, and she believed him. Mama Ebel noticed the change in her daughter's eyes. "Is he treating you well?" she asked one evening. "Yes, Mama," Ndidi replied, forcing a smile. "He is just under a lot of stress," but it didn't stop. The grip on her arm when she arrived late, the loud voice when she disagreed, the broken glass when she asked questions. It was like walking through her days on a road filled with needles. One night, they had dinner with friends, and Chinello, her best friend since school days, told a funny story that made Ndidi laugh loudly. Omik said nothing at the table, but the moment they got home, he exploded. "You think it's okay to make fun of me in front of people?" He roared. "I was just laughing," she tried to explain, but he grabbed her hair and shoved her into the wall. Then just as fast he changed. He pulled her close, whispered apologies, told her he just loved her too much. She stood stiff in his arms, tears wetting his shirt. Ndidi had promised herself that the last time Omik hit her would be the end. That night, something inside her had cracked open. It wasn't the sting on her cheek or the bruise that bloomed on her arm. It was the slow breaking of an illusion. The love she'd clung to like a lifeline had started to fade into the harsh light of truth. And the truth was simple. Omik was not going to change. No amount of tears, flowers, or apologies could undo what he had already done. She had begun to see clearly, no longer through the rosy lens of hope and longing, but through the cold eyes of reality. Her mother had warned her. Chinello had begged her. Everyone had seen what she had refused to face. And finally, she was ready to walk away. Her mother had once said, "A man who cannot control his anger is like fire in a dry bush. He will destroy everything around him." But Ndidi kept telling herself, "It's not always bad. There are good days. He buys me flowers. He calls me his queen." The truth was, she feared being alone more than she feared him. But life, cruel in its timing, placed something in her path that made her steps falter. 4 weeks before the wedding, she missed her period. Then another. Her chest grew tight. Her stomach turned. One evening, she stood in her room, holding the test in shaking hands. 2 bold lines. She was pregnant. Her knees almost gave way. Her breath came in shallow gasps. She had told herself it was just stress. But deep down, she had known. She had planned to leave after the last attack. She had started to gather her strength. But now, a baby? What would people say? What would her mother say? Did you hear? Ndidi is pregnant and not married. She has brought shame to her family. She was too desperate for love. Ndidi closed her eyes tightly. She could hear it all. The whispers, the looks, the pity masked as advice. Her heart pounded. Could she really raise a child alone? Could she bear the shame, the loneliness? Struggle? Her phone vibrated, jolting her back. Omek's name lit up the screen. Her thumb hovered over the red button. She wanted to ignore it. She wanted to run. But she didn't. Instead, she answered. "Hello?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "My love," came his voice, low, rich, familiar. The same voice that had once lulled her to sleep with sweet promises. The same voice that had thundered through their fights like a storm. "I need to see you," she said, surprising even herself. There was a pause. Then, "Come over." She didn't know what she hoped for. Maybe that the baby would change him. Maybe that he would become gentle, become the man she used to dream of. Maybe this child would fix what love alone could not. When Ndidi stepped into Omek's apartment, her whole body was tense. She had practiced this moment in her head again and again. She had chosen her words carefully, planning how to break the news gently, how to keep him calm. But no plan could prepare her for the fear that came from sitting face to face with a man who could flip from charming to cruel in seconds. He was lounging on the sofa, a drink in hand, one leg crossed over the other. He looked up and smiled. "You look serious," he said, a hint of amusement in his tone. "I have something to tell you," she replied, sitting at the edge of the chair like a guest in a stranger's home. He raised an eyebrow. "Go on." She took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was heavy. He stared at her. His expression didn't change. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Then he laughed. Not a joyful laugh, a flat, dry sound that sent chills down her spine. "Pregnant?" She nodded, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. He set his glass down and rubbed his forehead. "Are you sure?" She pulled out the test and placed it on the table. 2 pink lines. Omek stared at it, then tossed it aside like it meant nothing. "This is bad timing," he muttered. Her throat tightened. "What do you mean?" He stood up and began pacing. "We're not ready for a baby. I'm not where I need to be financially. You're still trying to build your business. A child will slow us down." "Slow us down." His words stabbed at her. Her eyes burned. "So what are you saying?" she asked, voice trembling. He looked at her, then away. "I know a doctor. It can be taken care of quietly." Her breath caught. "Taken care of?" "Ndidi, listen," he said sharply. "This isn't the time for a baby. We need to focus. You know how I get when things become stressful. She flinched. He didn't have to explain. She remembered all too well what stress turned him into. She stood slowly. I'm keeping the baby. His jaw tensed. His hands curled into fists and then uncurled. For a moment, she thought he might hit her again, but he didn't. He turned his back. You're being selfish. No, she said, her voice stronger now. I'm protecting this child. I won't end its life because it's inconvenient for you. He laughed bitterly. You really think you can do this alone? You'll regret it. You'll see. She picked up her bag and headed for the door. Maybe I will, but I'd rather regret walking away than regret staying. She stepped out into the night, the cool breeze hitting her skin like a blessing. A voice inside her whispered, you should have left long ago. 5 days passed, each one heavier than the last. She hadn't spoken to him since that night. Then he called. Ndidi, he began, his voice softer than she remembered. I was in shock, that's all. I didn't know what to say. But I've been thinking. I love you. I love this baby. I want to do the right thing. Her heart beat faster. Was this it? Was this the moment things would finally turn around? I want to build a family with you, he said. I can't imagine doing it with anyone else. Ndidi didn't speak right away. Part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her clung to hope like a child clings to a mother's hand in a storm. Are you sure about this? She asked quietly. I'm sure, he replied. No more fights, no more anger, just us and our baby. She closed her eyes. The little girl inside her still longed to be loved, to be chosen, and maybe this time would be different, so she said, okay. But deep inside, something still trembled, and a quiet fear stayed curled in the corner of her soul, refusing to leave. The bells of St. Elijah's church rang faintly in the distance, as Ndidi stood alone, once again in front of a mirror. The lace of her wedding gown traced her arms like spider silk, and the veil shimmered down her back like river mist. She looked every bit the bride she had once dreamed of becoming. But inside, her heart was sinking fast into a pit of dread. She didn't feel joy. She felt like a lamb about to be led into the lion's den. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. Marriage is not just about love, my daughter. It is about peace, and if peace is missing, do not enter. A knock broke the silence. Chinello stepped into the room, her face drawn, her eyes searching. Are you ready? Ndidi forced a weak smile. I think so. Chinello walked over, brushing her fingers against the veil. Are you sure? Ndidi's hand trembled slightly as she adjusted the beads on her shoulder. Why do you ask? Chinello looked at her directly. Because I know you. I know when your smile is real and when it's hiding something. Ndidi turned away. Omique loves me. Chinello scoffed softly. Does love slap you? Did love tell you to end your pregnancy? Ndidi's throat tightened. He apologized. He always does. A long silence sat between them. Chinello's voice dropped low, gentle but firm. I know you're scared of being a single mother. But Ndidi, there are worse things than raising a child alone. Ndidi turned to her friend, her eyes desperate. Please don't do this now. Chinello sighed, then asked the one question that cut deeper than any insult. If you had a daughter in your shoes, would you tell her to go ahead and marry him? Ndidi froze. Her breath caught. The answer slammed into her like thunder. No, she wouldn't. But before she could respond, there was another knock. Her mother's voice came from the hallway. My daughter, it is time. Chinello searched Ndidi's face one last time, hoping she would change her mind. Ndidi didn't. She turned away and whispered, Let's go. The church was beautiful. The walls were decorated with marigolds and hibiscus. The air carried the soft scent of frankincense and the sweet hum of wedding hymns. Guests sat in their finest attire, fanning themselves gently in the warm afternoon breeze, Everything looked perfect. But Ndidi's legs felt heavy as she walked down the aisle. Each step forward felt like walking deeper into a river she could not swim. Omik stood at the altar, smiling wide. But his eyes were cold, empty, dark. Her mother sat quietly in the front row, her hands clasped tightly, her eyes glassy. She had pleaded, she had warned, but Ndidi had insisted. The vows were spoken, the rings exchanged. "You may kiss the bride," the priest said. Ndidi's heart whispered, "This is not peace." But she ignored it. She kissed her husband and stepped into the storm she had been warned about. The honeymoon suite overlooked the ocean. The room was dressed in soft candlelight. Rose petals lined the bed. Everything looked like a dream. But dreams are not always sweet. Omik walked in behind her, pulling off his tie. He poured himself a glass of whiskey from the bar, then turned to look at her. "Mrs. Omik," he said with a smirk. Ndidi forced a small smile. "That's me." He sat on the bed and patted his lap. "Come here," she hesitated. "Let me freshen up first." His smile faded slightly. "Freshen up?" "Yes," she said, already moving toward the bathroom. But before she reached the door, his hand caught her wrist. His grip was tight. "Are you okay?" he asked, eyes narrowing. She nodded quickly. I just want a moment." He pulled her closer. "You're acting different." "No. I'm fine." He studied her, then asked, "Did Chinello say something to you before the wedding?" Her heart thundered. So he had noticed. "She didn't say anything serious," she lied. "Just emotional talk." He stared a moment longer, then slowly let go. Ndidi stepped into the bathroom, shut the door, and leaned against it. Her hands gripped the sink. Her reflection stared back, pale and unsure. "Why am I so afraid? He hasn't done anything, not yet." But she had learned his rhythm. Sweetness, suspicion, explosion. She splashed her face with cold water, whispered to herself, "You chose this. This is your husband now." A knock on the door made her jump. "Come out," Omik called. Calm voice. But there was an edge to it. She stepped back into the room. He was on the bed, holding his glass. "Who was that man at the reception?" Ndidi blinked. "What man?" "The one who hugged you. Who is he?" She frowned, confused, then realized. "Quaim? He's my cousin, my mother's nephew." Omek's jaw tensed. "Cousin?" "Yes." Omek's eyes narrowed, and the edge in his voice turned sharp. "Stop lying to me. That was no cousin. Don't insult my intelligence." Ndidi took a cautious step back. "It was nothing, Omik. He's family. You're overreacting." Omik slammed his glass down on the bedside table. The loud crack made Ndidi flinch. Her breath hitched. "So now you're going to tell me how to feel?" He snapped, rising to his feet with slow, heavy steps. "You're my wife now. Do you understand? That you belong to me." Ndidi's heartbeat thundered in her ears. She took another step backward, instinctively moving away from him. "Omik, please, not tonight, not tonight," he repeated mockingly, his face twisting with anger. "Do what, Ndidi?" "Ask my own wife who she was letting wrap his arms around her like a whore." The word hit her like a slap. Her eyes welled with tears. "You're drunk," she whispered. He let out a harsh, cold laugh. "Drunk? No, I'm just making sure my wife knows her place." Ndidi shook her head, trying to keep her voice steady. "Omik, I'm pregnant. Please just stop." His expression didn't soften. Instead, it ignited more rage. "You think I care?" he spat. Before she could move, his hand struck her face. The blow knocked her back, sending her crashing into the edge of the bed. A sharp, stabbing pain shot through her abdomen. "Omik!" she cried, clutching her stomach. "Please, the baby." But he wasn't done. He marched over and grabbed the fistful of her hair, yanking her upward like a rag doll. "I warned you," he snarled. I warned you that you'd regret ever talking back to me." Tears streamed down her face, mixing with blood. "Please." The baby. But her plea only enraged him more. His fist rose again, then everything went black. The only sounds in the suite were the distant crashing of waves and the shallow, panicked breaths of a man who had just crossed a line he could never return from. Ndidi lay motionless on the cold marble floor, her wedding gown stained with blood. Omik stood over her, chest heaving, hands trembling. His mind was spinning. This wasn't supposed to happen. He hadn't meant to kill her. He had just wanted to scare her, to remind her of who was in charge, to punish her for making him feel small. But now she wasn't moving. He stared at her still body, his eyes tracing the delicate lace torn at the shoulder, the way her hand rested over her belly. The baby. He dropped to his knees, panic washing over him in cold waves. "Ndidi," he whispered, "please, get up." She didn't respond. He reached out, almost afraid to touch her, when he saw the slightest twitch her fingers moved. "Ndidi," he gasped, relief crashing over him. She wasn't dead. Her eyelids fluttered open. Her lips trembled. Her eyes found his, and in that moment, something changed. There was no fear in her gaze. Only hate. Pure, burning, unforgiving. She tried to speak. Blood dripped from the corner of her mouth. She couldn't form full words. "I'm sorry," Omik whispered, reaching for her. Her voice came out weak but clear enough. "You will suffer." Then her body went limp. And this time, she didn't move again. Omik stumbled back, as if the weight of her final words had struck him physically. He looked around wildly, mind racing. What had he done? What was he supposed to do now? Blood was everywhere, on the floor, on the bed sheets, on his hands. He couldn't let anyone see this. He grabbed a blanket and covered her body, pacing the room like a trapped animal. His thoughts raced: run, lie, hide, clean up, anything. Then a knock. Firm, measured, deliberate. His head snapped up. He glanced at the wall clock. 2:47 a.m. "Mr. Omik?" A man's voice came from behind the door. "This is hotel management. Is everything okay?" Oma's heart slammed against his ribs. He quickly wiped his face and forced himself to sound calm. "Yes, everything's fine," he called out. Another knock followed. "Sir, we received a complaint about loud noises coming from your room." He swallowed hard. Someone had heard. Of course they had. It was just a misunderstanding. "My wife is sleeping now," he said, voice steadying slightly. There was silence outside. "Sir, we'd like to confirm that. May we come in?" Omek's breath caught. If they walked in now, it was over. He forced a chuckle. "I appreciate your concern, but she's fine. She just had a bad dream. We're newlyweds." "Emotions are high." The voice hesitated. Then, "All right, sir. If you need anything, let us know." He listened as the footsteps receded down the hallway. He had bought time, but not much. He turned back to the blanket. Ndidi's hand, her delicate bloodied hand, was peeking out from underneath. He moved to cover it again, but as his fingers touched hers, he shivered. They were ice cold. A violent image flashed in his mind, her smiling on their first date, the way she had defended him to her friends, how she had cried and stayed, over and over, and now she was gone. A lifeless body, a memory. Another knock broke the silence. Louder. "Mr. Omik," the manager's voice again. This time firm. Omek's mouth dried up. "Yes?" he called out. "We need to see your wife now." His body went cold. "She's asleep. We received another complaint." This time someone reported hearing a woman scream. His hands trembled. "She had a nightmare, that's all." Whispers came from behind the door. "Sir, please open the door." Omik panicked. He looked around. His eyes landed on her phone beside the bed. What if she had texted someone? He grabbed it, unlocked the screen, scrolled fast. Nothing. No. Outgoing calls. No recent messages. He exhaled. One less problem. But the knocking came again. Harder. Louder. And the truth, the blood, the silence, the body was not going anywhere. But the small relief Omik felt quickly vanished. The knock on the door returned, louder and sharper this time. "Mr. Omik, if you do not open this door immediately, we will call security," the manager's voice warned. His chest tightened. There was no more time to hide, no room for lies. He straightened his shirt, wiped his trembling hands against his trousers, and slowly walked to the door. He paused for one final breath, then opened it. 2 hotel staff stood there, along with a uniformed security guard. All 3 stared at him briefly, then looked past him into the room. The manager, a short man with sharp eyes, stepped forward. "We need to see your wife, sir." Omik forced a polite smile. "She's sleeping. There's no need for concern." The manager didn't budge. His gaze hardened. "Still, we must check." A guest on this floor reported a woman screaming. Omek's heart raced. He stepped forward slightly, trying to block their view. "Look, I understand your concern. But we just got married today. It's our honeymoon. She's simply exhausted." The security guard, a broad man with a serious expression, narrowed his eyes. "Sir, if she's just sleeping, why do you look so nervous?" Omik opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He was choking on panic. Without waiting, the manager moved past him. Omek's body tensed as the staff entered the room. Their eyes scanned everything: the untouched food, the unmade bed, the dim candlelight. Then they saw it. Blood. It stained the white marble floor and trickled beneath the blanket. Time seemed to freeze. The manager's face turned pale. The security guard immediately raised his radio to his mouth. The female staff member gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Call the police," someone yelled. Chaos erupted. Omek's brain fractured under the weight of what was happening. "Run," a voice screamed inside his head. "Jump from the balcony. Escape." His eyes darted to the window. Could he survive the fall? Was there time? No, there was no escape. Footsteps thundered down the hallway. More hotel staff. More security, then sirens. The police were already here. Omek's knees buckled as several officers stormed into the room, their guns raised. "Hands up," one shouted. He lifted his trembling hands. Cold metal cuffs snapped around his wrists. A firm grip shoved him forward. As he was dragged out of the room, the hallway was filled with shocked guests peeking through their doors. They whispered. They stared. Omik kept his eyes on the floor. One thought echoed through his mind. Ndidi was right. I will suffer. And this was only the beginning. The police van smelled of sweat and stale fear. Omik sat in the back, his wrists still cuffed. The metal dug into his skin. The lights of the city passed in a blur outside the barred windows. His throat felt dry. His head throbbed. This wasn't supposed to be his life. He was supposed to be on a beach somewhere with his bride, drinking champagne, laughing. Not this, not blood, handcuffs and silence. A slap to the back of his head jolted him. You better start praying, one of the officers barked. Because when we get to the station, you go explain this mess. Another officer glanced at him and sneered. Look at this one. Honeymoon murderer. Thinks he's a big man. Omik wanted to speak, to explain, to lie. But what could he possibly say? Would anyone believe him? Could he even believe himself? The van came to a stop. The doors swung open. Bright light flooded in. Rough hands grabbed him, yanked him out. They pushed him forward. The station was alive with movement. Officers hurried across rooms. Suspects sat on benches, some groaning, some silent, others already crying. Omik was marched past them. They stared. Some whispered. Others muttered, murderer. The label clung to him like fire on dry grass. One officer shoved him forward. He stumbled, nearly falling. The courtroom was still. Omik sat in the defendant's seat. His wrists were cuffed in front of him. His shoulders slumped. He looked nothing like the proud man he had once been. He hadn't truly slept in days. Not since Ndidi died. Not since the truth of what he had done began to crush him. The judge, an elderly woman with stern eyes and a voice that held no mercy, cleared her throat. "Mr. Omik Okafor," she began, "you are hereby found guilty of the murder of Ndidi Okafor, your lawfully wedded wife, who was pregnant at the time of her death." The room was silent except for her voice. "The evidence is overwhelming. Medical reports confirm she endured repeated abuse. Witnesses testified. Her mother, her best friend, even neighbors' people warned her, yet she stayed. And now she is gone." Omik closed his eyes. He didn't want to hear more. But he had to. The judge continued, her voice harder now. "Because of your actions, a woman lost her life. And an unborn child lost the chance to ever take its first breath." Those words sliced through him like a blade. "This court does not tolerate domestic violence. You are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor." A collective gasp moved through the courtroom. Omik didn't fight. He didn't speak. He just lowered his head. His punishment had started long before the verdict. The gavel hit the desk. Court dismissed. As officers came to take him away, he turned his head slightly, searching the room. He wasn't looking for mercy. He wasn't looking for pity. He was looking for her. And there she was. Ndidi's mother, sitting in the front row. Her face was unreadable. Her eyes red, but dry. She had run out of tears. What was left was something deeper, quieter, grief wrapped in iron. Omik held her gaze for one breath. She didn't scream at him. She didn't curse him. She just stared. And somehow, that was worse. He dropped his eyes. Because he knew that was his true punishment. Not the prison. Not the chains. But the fact that he had killed the only person who had ever truly loved him. The sun rose softly over the cemetery. A few people stood quietly around a fresh grave. The wind was still. The pain was loud. Ndidi's mother knelt, her hands shaking as she placed a bouquet of white lily on the grave. The tombstone read, "Ndidi Okafor, 1999-2025, beloved daughter. A heart too pure for this world." She whispered, her voice breaking, "I'm sorry, my child. I should have pulled you out. I should have fought harder." A hand rested gently on her shoulder. Chinello. Her face was tight with sorrow. "You did what you could, Mama," she said softly. "Ndidi's gone, but her story won't be forgotten." The two women stood silently. And as long as her story was told, maybe, just maybe, another woman would hear it and run before it's too late. This tale reflects a painful reality. Too many women endure in silence. Ndidi saw the signs. She heard the warnings. Still, like many, she hoped her love could heal what only the other person could fix. But love, no matter how deep, cannot change someone who doesn't want to change themselves. No woman should carry the burden of someone else's violence. No woman should trade her safety for the fear of loneliness. And no woman should be shamed for choosing freedom over fear. If your instincts are uneasy, trust them. If your loved ones raise concern, pause and reflect. A man who hurts you once will most likely do it again. Control, jealousy, emotional abuse, they do not grow into love. They grow into danger. You deserve peace. You deserve joy. You deserve to live. You are not alone. And you are not powerless. There is a way out. There are people who will help. There is a better tomorrow waiting on the other side of courage. Choose your future. Choose your voice. Choose to stay alive. If this story moved you, please consider sharing it with someone who may need to hear it. To support our mission of telling raw, honest stories from our communities, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story that matters. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay strong, and remember, your life is worth protecting.